Hello, all. I come to you with a review of The Jaunt by Stephen King, which was a short story that was first published in the June 1981 issue of Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone magazine. The reason I'm doing this is because um, I'm actually rereading the magazine. I found this um, at Son of Monster Palooza about 2 years ago, and I'm finally getting around to it. In my box back here, where I keep all my magazines, I've got a pretty sizable collection of uh, Twilight Zones. It and Fangoria were the two seminal magazines of my youth. They were the ones that I subscribed to and voraciously pored over. I have actually quite a few rejection slips buried in a box somewhere around this house or in our garage that are from the Twilight Zone magazine. I submitted to them on the regular right up until they ceased to exist, and I think that was 1989 that their final, or 1988 that their final issue was published, and the last two magazines of the subscription were Omni, which was not the same thing. But Twilight Zone introduced me to a great many writers, most notably Joe R. Lansdale. That's his short stories were the in this magazine were what got me hooked on him. And originally, I was going to go do a flip through of the magazine and do some reviews of the stories in them, but there's 10 original stories in here, and I thought I would just keep them brief, short, and you know, uh, you know, just focus on one story. And I chose the Jaunt because it was the first story in the magazine, and the thumbnail and the introductory picture, as you can see, I'm covering myself now, is the art for by Joseph Reyes that was used for the story. And my ultimate assessment of the story as a reader today, 44 years after its publication, is that it's good, not great. I did read the story. I thought that my first issue of Twilight Zone was the October 1981 issue, but as I was reading through this, I remembered reading the interview with Robert Bloch and reading Gahan Wilson's reviews for the formula and scanners. Uh, whether I don't know if I read them at in the bookstore while I was waiting for my parents or something, but there's another story which I'm going to review at a later time. Uh, that also I remember that was stuck with me. But I'm digressing because that's what I do. Um, the Jaunt is one of Stephen King's few forays into science fiction. It's more science fantasy. It involves teleportation, and it is a story within a story. So Mark Oates, who works for Texaco, is being transferred to Mars for um, reasons. Evidently, there's oil on Mars, but so his family is going with him, and they are jaunting for the first time. Now, the jaunt is, like I said, teleportation, and you have to be sedated in order to go through the jaunt. If you are awake when you jaunt, bad things happen. Now, Oates has done some jaunting, to and from Mars, to building up to his being transferred to the company offices in Whitehead City on Mars. But his wife and two children have not, and they have some jitters, especially the children, who are 12-year-old Ricky and 9-year-old Patricia. So, to calm their nerves, Mark Oates does the dumbest thing any human being has ever done. He tells them the story of how the Jaunt was invented, because that's what you want to do. When somebody's nervous, you want to talk about all the failed tests that happened prior to flying. You want to hear about all those airplane crashes. You want to hear about all this. That's why this falls into the good category, not great. As I was reading it critically, I was like, But there is a lot about this story that really stuck in my memory. If you've read the story, and I'm sure just about anybody who comes to this channel or is clicked on this video has read the story, but I'm not going to go into spoilers on a 44-year-old story, because it's still published, still available widely. You can read it for yourself. But there were several images in the story that stuck in my memory from that first reading 44 or so years ago. One was when Victor Carew, the inventor of the Jaunt, is bringing in mice from a local pet store and putting them through the Jaunt, and finding that while they come through complete, they die almost immediately thereafter, and they come out looking there's something off about them. Their eyes are kind of milky white, and they look very kind of tired, or just kind of, they have no energy. And what he realizes also is that if he put him in backwards, or just put him in the backside, nothing happens to them. It's only when their brains go through that this terminal condition arises, which means something happens within the Jaunt that is nightmarish to the point of inducing death. Stephen King's story. What people soon realize is that if you sedate somebody, they come out okay. Now, this brings me to the other aspect of the story, that the other image from the story, I should say, that stuck with me, which is Randall Foggia, who is a condemned criminal who is granted, he will be released from prison if he goes through awake, or he'll be executed. So, he's like, oh, what the hell? So he goes through, and that is the moment of the story that really stuck with me. And let me see here. He goes, he came through alive, but Randall Foggia was in no condition to eat his chicken dinner. In the space of time it took to jaunt across the 2 miles, pegged at 0.0000000000067 of a second by computer, Foggia's hair had turned snow white. His face had not changed in any physical way. It was not lined or jowly or wasted, but it gave the impression of great, almost incredible age. Foggia shuffled out of the portal, his eyes bulging blankly, his mouth twitching, his hands splayed out in front of him. Presently he began to drool. The scientists who had gathered around drew away from him, and no, Mark really doubted if any of them had talked. They knew about the rats, after all, and the guinea pigs, and the hamsters, any animal, in fact, with more brains than your average flatworm. They must have felt a bit like those German scientists who tried to impregnate Jewish women with the sperm of German shepherds. What happened? One of the scientists shouted, is reputed to have shouted. It was the only question Foja had a chance to answer. It's eternity in there, he said, and dropped dead of what was diagnosed as a massive heart attack. That moment in the story, it's eternity in there, is what haunted me for years. I won't go into what happens at the very end of the story, but like I said, telling your children this as a bedtime story before jaunting, not advised. Of course, Mark doesn't tell them this, but I'm sure there's probably a lot of like rumor and scary stories about what happens if you jaunt while awake, if it's been going on for this long. So there were a couple of logistical issues, but when you're reading the story for the first time, it's a banger. But like I said, returning to it again after I've read it a couple of times now, I would say good, not great, but it was an excellent way to kick off this particular anthology. And honestly, um, the images and lines of dialogue, uh, they were they were as vivid as I remember them being. I'm still haunted. Longer than you think. Longer than you think. Long John. Anyway, I would probably give this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I will let's say that three is probably it's like middle of the road. I mean, it's good, not great. 4 stars would be great. Five, I think, would be this is an superlative example of either the author or the kind of story that's being told. This solid little yarn that is well told, and I think there's a great story buried in there. But what has come out is a good story with some really unnerving scenes in it because it's Stephen King. So there you have it. That's my first review for this channel. First review from Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone magazine, my favorite magazine growing up, and probably still my favorite magazine. And I'll be back in a week, or two with another review of another story, and maybe a stuff of the month or anything. Thanksgiving's coming up, and we got visitors and everything, so it's just kind of chaotic. The holidays are starting, but and I've got a jigsaw puzzle to finish and books to read and movies to watch and a Christmas tree to decorate. Anyway, happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate. If not, have a great weekend. And I'll see you again in a little while. Stay scary. Bye.